Yeah, for me, subterranean is a kind of complex figure which unites different understanding of the space which beneath the Earth's surface.
Yeah.
And for example, we have many different indigenous beliefs connected with subterranean space. For example, in many epic poetry, for example, in Yakutian or Lonho epic poetry, protagonists or heroes, they go underground to gain some resources there. And in these spaces, in many folklore myths and mythology and folklore, this space beneath the Earth's surface is connected very often with the life and death and with the resources. For example, they go there to gain wives, to find wives as a main resource, and they found wife there, and they give the origin for whole people on the earth. You also can find such images in Kalevala in Finnish epic poetry. They go somewhere on the north in Pohjola country, but actually Pohjola, as researchers say, Pohjola is something on the far north, but it is also something which is underground. So it's both underground and on the north. Sometimes on north, sometimes in underground, sometimes both. So, but you can also, it can be very dangerous to go there always.
Yeah.
And you can see it in many mythology, right? Only protagonists, only heroes, only some Batu's can go there and come back. But it is necessary for them because they can get there a very important resource, which is crucial for all humanity, not only for them, but for all humanity, for their people. So this is one point of view, right? Through mythology, from something very old, mythological. The other point of view is scientific. We have this subterranean space, and we go there, especially it was very often Soviet times, like the whole campaigns go and take resources from subterranean space, like all this extracting activities, all this modernization, and of course this is very often it was atheist. It was on the first at the first glance it was not connected to any mythology, but when you try to analyze these narratives, you see that very often it is a kind of a new modernization mythology, like when you see the representation photos of those people who go underground to take resources for humanity. You see a very similar structure to old mythology. But now it goes not for death, not for life, not for something mystical or some mystical object, but he goes for minerals, for example, for oil. This is a new hero. Yeah. So this is the kind of the second. And now in postmodernism era, in contemporary kind of, we see a kind of combined viewpoint, because we see that now they unite in a new vision, because now we hear a lot of processes which are described, for example, as neo-traditionalism or conservative turn or postmodernism, postmodernist critique of modernism. We see a revival of new religiosities, of new spiritualities worldwide, and we see, for example, when people talk about the cloning industry in Yakutia, of cloning of mammoths, resurrection of mammoth. We see the combination cloning. See both the combination of both the technocratic and secular point of view with neo-traditionalism and neo-conservative. We see how, for example, these new films are made. They are not already totally secular. We see how the hole with the blood, blood, it's bleeding with blood, and it makes a very strong, almost religious impression of something frightening. We something living already, something. So we see the combination of all those discourses today of understanding of subterranean, and in my project and also in this project for you for Tokyo, I try to combine them, to see them separately, but also to see the contemporary situation when they all exist all together, secular and mythological, and also giving birth to such interesting phenomena, like, for example, techno-animism, when people use all media art and all modern technology, but they are kind of engaging in new animist beliefs, like many contemporary artists in Yakutia, for example, today. Also on Uralic, we also show the work of Ural artists, Sergei Yudichev, who used to make a kind of contemporary rituals underground, to dig some hole and to make there some rituals. And all this, as I mentioned already, all this discourse of scientific resurrection, of cloning of mammoths and old animals, they have a lot also from new mythology. Yeah, this is the photo made by English researcher Charlotte W. Wrigley, who made research in Yakutia in Pleistocene Park. And we contacted her, and she gave me this image for exhibition. Urals. Yeah, so that's maybe the main purpose, the main idea behind the whole my project. To show the complexity of this discourse today, that it unites the secular and modernist understanding of subterranean world, also with the more ancient mythological understanding, which is united today in some kind of new hybrids, very interesting hybrids, like and we see some interesting hybrids like a techno-animism or ecological feminism, a kind of we again begin to understand the earth as a living whole, you know, that like the whole earth is a living whole. This is also happening in the frame of post-colonial struggle for other ontologies, of other indigenous ontologies, and people begin to come back to these ontologies because it's in some in many rakurses, in many parts, these cosmologies are more progressive than modernist cosmologies. For example, in the relation of people with earth, with nature, they are much more harmonic and progressive. And when you combine them with, for example, some technology, contemporary technology, you receive something very new, and which can help also to struggle with crisis, with contemporary ecological crisis, with alienation of man from nature. So that's how it works, as I see it today. Yeah, in this text, in this new text, I kind of summarized all what I said already in our conversation today about the subterranean, about the figure of subterranean. And it is also worth to add that this is not only the relation, for example, of man with earth, with nature, but it is also the relations of man with himself, because subterranean is also a figure of unconscious. Because when you exploitate the outer nature as earth or terra, land, you also exploitate your own nature, which is inside you.
I see.
The Faustian fall happened, you know, this Faust on the eve of New Age, which externalized his soul. He alienated his soul from himself and sold it for the power over the forces of nature, and this was the beginning of modernity, actually, because he split himself and he began to exploit the nature inside himself and also the nature outside of himself. He gained this split, not only external but internal split, and we're still inside this situation. We're still inside.
I see.
So this figure, you see that the figure of subterranean is very interesting. It's not only it's figure about some life forces, about other figure of other world. It is also figure of subconscious, of unconscious and subconscious. This is also a figure of say wild people, because we have this splitting between man and woman, man and nature, or civilization and barbarian, of conscious and unconscious. And from my point of view, the figure of subterranean, it represents all these figures which stand on this part, unconscious, human, earth, nature. So the part which was colonized by this Faustian or post-Faustian modern man. And what's the whole in this context, right? That's what we discussed with you, and I also reflected on it in my text after our discussions. What's the whole in this context? Whole is a kind of the communication, communication between these two splitted, violently divided worlds, which in the beginning was one common thing, but then they began split it, and both parts and man itself, or human being, let's say, it feels a kind of uncomfortability, not harmonic situation, and we want to make a connection with this part, with other part, let's say subterranean part. We want to connect, and we dig holes. We dig holes to subtract, to mine. We dig holes to extract things. So we dig holes to some directly to subterranean world, and the hole itself in contemporary age, it became a kind of the image of this forceful extractivity, of this extraction, of penetration. It's kind of a penetration, right? But it's not only the meaning of hole, because holes are also produced and appears as for example, as a result of volcano eruptions.
It's really geological, interpretation on hole. It's really interesting for me.
You also have a kind of a hole at the end, right? Then volcano already, the eruption is ended and it became cold. You can have this also hole, but volcano eruption is a disaster for human beings, right?
Yes, quite a disaster.
And we have this conversation now because that volcano eruptions are dependent on ecological risk, right? That they enhance the global warming and so on. So we have a two-sided interaction, because we men digging holes, making holes to penetrate, to make violence.
Actually, there was the huge volcano happened just after we opened the show. So
recently. But it is very dangerous for human beings to go into the hole. Even he controls the hole. At any case, like in mining industry, it can rush and the hole becomes a grave for all people who came inside the hole. But when you make so many holes, in the meaning that you extract so much, you penetrate so much in subterranean, you can make a disastrous response. You can receive some catastrophe in response, like the image of volcano eruption in response. This is proper image, and you receive the other type of fall, which is a result of this response of the other part of the unity, of the split unity, which are threatened to you.